What's going on YouTube? It's wrinkles. Back in another video. In today's video, this is going to be my first round mock draft of the 2025 NFL Draft. This is a post-combine. I could pull it up here. I have my spreadsheet of all the guys that participated in the combine and their times. It's pretty lengthy, but I like it just to see how they perform during the workouts. Um, and where some people measured even if they didn't work out. Like Will Johnson, we figured out he had shorter arms than usual even though he didn't run or anything. Um, but yeah. Uh, I'll try to justify every pick. I know some are going to be hot takes, but I guess we just get this started. And number one to the Titans. This is a weird spot because I think they'll trade down with the Giants. I think it's just a high possibility. I think the Giants really want Cam Ward. Um, but if you're the Titans and you stick at one, do you believe in Will Levis? Do you not believe in Will Levis? That's the big question. If you don't, I believe you go with Abdul Carter if he just wants to load or not. I think such a good player. Played off the ball last or like 2 years ago. Played as an edge this year and absolutely dominated. Just an absolute freak. Um, but I think if you're the Titans, you have the number one pick in the draft. How often are you going to pick number one is the thing. And I think the quarterback with the highest potential is Cam Ward in this class. So I think at the end of the day, you're sitting at one. If you don't have a trade partner to really ship off the first pick to, I think you just stick and pick the best quarterback in the class and replace Will Levis. Number two to the Browns. I don't really know what to do here. Um, I mean, I could see them go Shador. I could see them not. I could see Shador falling down the board a little bit, somewhere around. I was gonna say Raiders, but they just traded for Geno. I could see him going to the Jets, but I'm not gonna go Shador. I'm actually gonna go his Colorado teammate, and this is gonna be actually, yeah, I am. I'm gonna just say screw it. I'm gonna go Travis Hunter, number two. Um, I think a better corner than wide receiver. I think he can be more impactful on the defensive side of the ball than offensive. I think if you want to play him on the offensive side of the ball, you give him those third down snaps, those like impactful plays designed for him, and just get him a limited amount of offensive snaps and play him predominantly on the defense. But I think just such a good player. I think he's a generational talent. I don't think we've seen anything like this before because he's so skilled on both sides of the ball. It's not like he's actually, I believe he's better on defense, but there's not a general consensus of what side of the ball he's better on. And I think if you're the Browns, and you don't want to go quarterback, I think you take best player available, and I think that's either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. And I think if Myles Garrett leaves, there's a very high possibility of Abdul Carter going there. But in this case, Travis Hunter becomes a Brown, which leaves the Giants in a tough spot. Um, yeah, I mean, the Giants desperately need a quarterback. They need pretty much everything. Um, besides D line. I think their rush is pretty good with Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns. Um, but here with the Giants, I think Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are just going to be so desperate to keep their jobs that they go quarterback. This is pre-free agency, by the way. Free agency starts in basically 2 days from now. So I don't know if they're going to pick up Sam Darnold or someone like that, but um, I think if they don't, they do go quarterback in the draft because I think this would be Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen's last year on the job, and I think if they don't show any improvement with the roster, then they aren't gonna stay in New York, and I think that's a big part of who your quarterback is, and I think you're gonna want someone that is somewhat dependable just due to how high his draft stock might actually be. I think predominantly due to the last name, but he's very accurate. I see him as a good fit for like a 49ers team where like Brock Purdy fit in. Not massive arm strength, but just good accuracy. The Kyle Shanahan system would fit him well. Um, so yeah, I'd say his most ideal fit is someone like the 49ers, someone that has a Shanahan scheme like the Dolphins or something like that. But I think the Giants act in desperation here and just take a quarterback in hopes of pretty much reviving the roster. And this is basically the best case scenario for the Patriots because you get someone who's most likely the best draft prospect in the draft at number four in Abdul Carter. I mean, just so explosive off the edge. Shut down Ashton Genty, who's right here in the Uh, Fiesta Bowl? I think so. I think it was in the Cardinal Stadium. Can't exactly remember, but it was in the college football playoff somewhere. Just such a good player. He was very consistent this year. Um, yeah, I mean, just electric. Kind of reminds me of Marco Parsons just due to his ability to switch around, how fast he is. Played off ball linebacker, went to edge. Um, so yeah, I really like Abdul Carter as a prospect. I think he's probably the best player in the class. Uh, I think he has long enough arms to just be a dominant edge rusher. I don't think he measured in at the combine. I don't have it on my spreadsheet, but I can figure that out right now. I might have just not filled it in by accident. Yeah, didn't have an arm length at the combine, but came in at 6'3", 250. I think he's going to be a dominant player in the league, and I could see the Browns going with him if Myles Garrett does leave, as I said earlier. But I mean, the Patriots, you see him, you take him. There's no other questions asked. I think everyone would be like, "Wow, you pretty much got the steal of the draft, even if it's that high." Moving on to the Jaguars, I think this is pretty self-explanatory. I've seen pretty much every mock draft take this, and that's Mason Graham. But for this mock draft, I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to reach a little bit and go Tyler Warren. This is after the Evan Ingram release, which doesn't really make sense to me because I thought he's a very good tight end when healthy, and I think the big question is when is he healthy? But you're taking on such a big dead cat penalty for him. I don't really understand the point of cutting him. You might as well just keep him for another year. I mean, he's a dependable target for Trevor Lawrence, and that's kind of what you need after losing Christian Kirk and then cutting Evan Ingram on the same day. Um, but yeah, I think Tyler Warren's probably one of the best overall tight ends, able to block down but also receive better than um, my tight end too, which would be Colson Loveland wherever he is. Oh, he fell a little bit. Yeah, 29. Um, but yeah, I think Tyler Warren just one of the better draft prospects in the class. I think the tight end class is very good. I like Gunnar Helm as a blocker. I like Harold Fannin as a receiver. Terrence Ferguson's kind of your all around guy. These two are pretty similar. Um, to Terrence Ferguson. I think sorry, is a little faster than these. Um, but yeah, they both are dependable targets and can also block. Colson Loveland's more of a receiving guy. Doesn't really block all that well, which is kind of what Harold Fannin does. Um, but Tyler Warren's kind of a jack of all trades. I mean, you see the tape at Penn State. He's able to line up in the backfield, similar to what Brock Bowers is doing. Not saying he reminds me of him, but he was just doing that stuff. Came in at 6'5" and a half, 256. So I mean, big dude. Obviously, I think this will have him at 6'6", 260 probably. Yeah, 6'6", 261. Slimmed up a little bit before the combine, I guess. Just a couple pounds, but such a dynamic player. And I think after losing Evan Ingram, you could look to weapons for Trevor Lawrence and just try to keep riding it out with him, even though he hasn't been all that great since being drafted. Besides the year that they beat the Chargers, coming back from 24, 27, something like that, in that playoff game, where he threw 3 picks or something like that in the first quarter or half. But yeah, I think Tyler Warren's such a dependable target, such a good blocker that if he's there, I could see him go as high as 5, and I think this is his ceiling, but I'm taking him at his ceiling. Um, and then moving on to the Raiders, I know it says needs QB, they don't. They just traded for Geno, as I said, for their third round pick, I believe, which I think is incredible value because Geno's near that top 10 quarterback, and I don't think any of these quarterbacks, including Cam Ward or Shador, are going to be there. So I think re-signing Max Crosby to that big deal, getting Geno Smith, you try to maybe get another dynamic player, and that could be a Teddy McMillan, who I think falls a little bit. I've seen him being projected to fall. Could be Matthew Golden, who's just rising up boards right now. I mean, that 4.29, I believe he ran. Um, just pretty much got everyone on board with him, and his tape is really good. Just doesn't drop the ball. But at number 6, Chip Kelly, very running back dependent. He had both of these guys who were both very good prospects. Quinshon Judkins ran a lot faster than I anticipated. Travion Henderson is a very good running back. I think could have been a first round talent if there wasn't health concerns. But I mean, the obvious RB1 is Ashton Genty, and I think that's where they'll go. I could see them go Mason Graham, but I think Christian Wilkins will be fine coming back from injury. tore his ACL last year, I believe. Um, but yeah, Ashton Jinty, I mean, I can't really say enough. Just such a good player. I mean, you see the stats: 29 touchdowns, seven 7 yards per carry on 375 attempts is absolutely absurd, and he just bounces off tackles like no other. Yeah, I think just one of the most dynamic players in the class. Him and Tyler Warren, Abdul Carter, and Travis Hunter are kind of my blue chips, along with Mason Graham. So yeah, I think the Raiders could go that running back direction now that they have their quarterback or their bridge quarterback, I guess to an extent. Because how old's Gino? How old do we think Gino is? I think he's 33. 34. Sorry, but he could be dependable for a couple of years, and I think you draft a running back if you believe they're going to have valuable carries, and I think adding Gino and keeping Max Crosby means that Genty is going to have meaningful carries, especially if you get a wide receiver like a Tyler Lockett or a DK from Seattle, who Tyler Lockett got released, DK requested a trade. Um, but moving on to the Jets, this is also a dream for them if Mason Graham just falls this far. I don't anticipate him falling this far. I really think he'll go to the Jaguars, but in this one, I kind of just wanted to mix things up because when I'm doing mock drafts on my alone time, I always just go with Mason Graham. And now that Evan Ingram got released, I was like, okay, I can just add a wrinkle in here and see how the rest pans out. And I usually do Abdul Carter here and Travis Hunter here, or Travis Hunter here, and then Shador fall a little bit. Um, but yeah, I decided to add a wrinkle. But Mason Graham, I mean, such a good prospect. Had very short arms at the combine though. I think like somewhere in the 31s. 32 on the dot. Sorry. Came in very light as well at 296. But I mean, you watch the tape. He's just a destroyer. I mean, gets the quarterback from uh the interior, just an interior force alongside Kenneth Grant, who's kind of that bigger body run stopper. Um, but if you watch this tape against Ohio State or I think USC might have been one of the best ones. I mean, you can just see the potential that he has. He just gets through blocks so easily, and you can see that wrestling background become very prevalent. Um, I mean, just every game you watch, he kind of just fiddles with his guard, even if he lines up over the center, and just absolutely dominates everyone he plays game by game. I think one of the best prospects in the class could be third best, I believe. Actually, I'll fourth. I think Abdul Hunter are 1A, 1B, and then Genty Graham. But yeah, I think the Jets, you need to address that interior with Quinn Williams being there, and I think Mason Graham would be such a good fit there. Which is kind of unfortunate for the Panthers. I think he'd be perfect there as well. Um, but here, no edge besides Abdul has gone. I think you could use a pass rusher. I don't think James Pierce goes as high as he's ranked. I actually like the guys down here a lot more, and I think at this spot you kind of want flexibility, someone that can move across the line. Just see where they're best at because at the end of the day, you need to address the entire defense to an extent. You're losing Shaq Thompson. Yes, sorry, I was thinking Shaq Mason because he just got released. So you could look to linebacker, but I kind of like the linebacker class. I think you can get someone later on. I think Jahad Campbell and Jalen Walker, people that can play off the edge. Um, and also, sorry, I'm blanking. Play off the edge and off the ball. Sorry. Um, I like both of them as prospects a lot. I think Jahad Campbell a little bit more than Jalen Walker, but Jalen Walker is very dynamic. Uh, but here you're looking edge. I think edge that could move into the interior if needed, and I think that's Shamar Stewart. I mean, just an absurd athlete. There's no other way to put it. Ran a 4.59 with a 1.58 10-yard split, which is insane for a dude his size. I mean, he's 6'5", 267. And explosive like no other. I mean, I know broad jumps and vertical jumps don't really mean anything, but it shows the explosiveness in the player. And he had a 40-inch vertical with a 10-foot 11-inch broad jump, which is just absurd for someone that size. I think um, his his intangibles will translate well to the NFL. I know he didn't really have the sack numbers. I think he had 2 sacks last year, somewhere around that. But I don't think getting to the quarterback was really his role. I think if you need him to get to the quarterback, he will. But I don't think he was asked to do that much at A&M. I think that was more of wherever he is, Nick Scorton's job. But moving on to the Saints, this is I feel they would want any of these three guys besides Genty here. but they could even go Genty. I mean, if Genty's there, everyone would probably want him. Um, I think you need to address the line. I don't think any D tackle is worth drafting this high unless it's Mason Graham. You could go edge. You could go Michael Williams here, but I talked about him for the Panthers as a dynamic athlete. I'm gonna go Jalen Walker here. I actually really like him. I don't know how much he's gonna be able to play off the edge. I think he's gonna be a blitzer up the middle or a loop around guy. I don't think he's gonna be like in a 3-4 sitting on the edge unless he's as explosive as anticipated. He's big enough. His arms are kind of short though, 32-inch somewhere around there. Um, let's see. I'm trying to find him. Sorry. Jalen Walker, 30. Yeah, 32 on the dot. So similar to Mason Graham, just such an explosive athlete, can play off the ball if need be. I think you want versatility if you're the Saints. On the exterior D line, you can use an off ball linebacker if need be. And I think Jalen Walker could be versatile enough to fill both those gaps for a little bit. Um, and if you're the Bears, man, you're loving this draft because what do you want? One of these two offensive line. I know you traded for Joe Tooney and what's his name? The Rams dude. It's not. Uh, it's something Jackson. Jonah Jackson. I was thinking Donovan Jackson because I don't know where he's at, but he's in this draft class, and that's where my mind was, and I knew it wasn't right. Um, but yeah, the Bears traded for basically two guards. I think Jonah Jackson is a guard. Um, but you could always kick Tooney out if you want. I mean, he was pretty dependable if you are or if you were the Chiefs last year, sorry, with all the injuries, but I think you could address the right tackle. Braxton Jones can move over, stay as a left tackle, which I mean he's kind of serviceable. Uh, but I'm actually going Armin Membu over Will Campbell here. Just such a good tester in the combine. I think he's gonna rise a lot. Just due to his arm length being 33 and a half, which means he can play tackle just due to his athleticism. I know you're aiming around the 34-inch, which only a couple guys had this year. Emory Jones, one of them. Carson Vincent, another. Cameron Williams, and Brandon Crenshaw Dixon are pretty much all of them, and Charles Grant. So there's five guys with long like the threshold for arm length. But I think Armin Membu makes up for that half an inch with his athleticism. I think if you want him to play left tackle, you really could try it out. But I think you start him out at right tackle and then move him over later after he develops a little bit. But just such a good athlete, and the tape is so good as well. I think he might be the first offensive lineman off the board. And they kind of fell a little bit. I see the Patriots as a team that needs one. The Jaguars could go Will Campbell or Membu. Even the Saints could go one of those. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone needs offensive line. You can't really have enough. But in this case, they kind of fell down the board a little bit, and the Bears are able to have their selection at a as which one they want. And I think in this case, they would like Membu just due to his ability to play on the exterior as well as interior if need be. But moving on to the 49ers, this is going to be back-to-back offensive linemen, and this is Will Campbell. I think Will Campbell is a guard. I don't think he is a tackle. Um, his arms are too short. I know he's such a dynamic athlete at the position, but I think you stick him inside, and he'll be uh, a lot better than on the exterior just due to that arm length, because I think they're 32 and 5/8 inches or 32 and 3/8. I can pull it up here and show y'all where I'm getting this from. Um, so this is the spreadsheet. The arm length is here, and if we're looking for Will Campbell, 32 and 5/8. Um, but yeah, I think a guard in the NFL, I think he could be an all-pro level guard, and I think if you're the 49ers, you need to address the offensive line. They're kind of getting older, and yeah, I think just plug Will Campbell in. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then number 12 to the Cowboys. This is another funky little spot, but I'm actually gonna go with one of my favorite players in the class, and that's Marion Hampton. He ran very well in the 4.4s as a big back. I think 6 foot 220, somewhere around there. I can find it right here. 221, yeah. So he's a big back. Ran in the fours. Sorry, I almost said 4.6s. 4.46. The tape at North Carolina is just so good. He has the big playability, but he's more of an in between the tackles guy. You can see the last 2 years just very productive, very consistent. I mean, same yards per carry, same touchdowns, pretty even receiving to target ratio. Had more carries and more targets this year, but that's just because he was playing a bigger role. I just think such a good player, and I think the Cowboys desperately need a running back, and I think the running back value is actually coming back compared to previous years. So yeah, I think you could go with Mario Hampton, and not a lot of people would question it. And I'd like the pick, to be honest, even though I hate the Cowboys. Um, but number 13 to the Dolphins. I'm gonna throw another wrinkle in here. I'm going Nicky Manwari. Uh, just such a freak, such good tape as well. Um, I mean, I don't really know what else to say. He's such a good player with such good athleticism that if you have a safety that's um retiring in Jordan Poyer, you just go safety. It's a need. It's a position that you want to an extent. I think Malachi Starks is a better single high safety, but Nicky Moore can play in that box. He can play two high, even single high if you need him to, just because of his speed. I mean, ran 4.39, 4.38 at that size, and I think a lot of teams are going to view him as a safety, not as a middle linebacker or an inside the box safety due to that athleticism. I think just a freak of nature, and I think the Dolphins would be all over if he's there at 13, which I think he will be. Number 14 to the Colts. I'm actually gonna throw another wrinkle back to back. With Colson Loveland, I think they could reach a little bit for a tight end just due to that desperate need. I think you want to give Anthony Richardson a security blanket. I know there was reports of you looking to move on from him. That came out as a recent, which I don't know if that's true. I think they'll ride out his rookie deal and see what happens after this year. But yeah, I think you get the security blanket. Colson Loveland's such a good receiver at the tight end position that I think you could go with him. And I'd like the pick. I think he's one of the top 10 players in the class, but tight end value, you kind of like a safety. It just doesn't go that high typically, but this tight end class is pretty good. And I think Colson Loveland's in that. I think he's in a tier of his own below Tyler Warren and then above the rest of the guys. And I think the Colts will recognize that and go with him just due to his receiving ability. And then number 15 to the Falcons. I think that fans will love this. And this is Michael Williams staying in Georgia to go to Atlanta. Just again, a freak. I think 6'5", 260 came in somewhere around there. Um, where's he at? I just lost him. He's here somewhere. Okay, I found him. Yeah, 6'5" and a half, 260 with 34 and 3/8 inch arms. So a lot longer than a tackle. Um, kind of reminds me of a Trayvon Walker. I think Michael Williams could go somewhere in the top 10. In this case, he falls a little bit just due to him not testing in that 2024 tape, which wasn't excellent, but he was also battling through injuries and still showed signs while being injured. Um, but yeah, I think really good player. Um, Someone that's very projectable for the future, and I think the Falcons need to go defense. They've gone offense so much as of recent in drafts, especially in the first round. That I think this year is finally the year that you address defense, and Michael Williams does do that for you. And then number 16 to the Cardinals, you could go with a tackle. You could go with a guard, something like that. Go with one of these guys. You could go with. I like Gray Zabel a lot, to be honest, just due to his versatility across the line. Um, but here I could see Kelvin Banks go, and that's what I'm gonna do. I think can play tackle at the next level. I keep talking about the arm length, but his was 33 and a half, I believe. Yeah, 33 and a half, but huge hands. Sorry, I just noticed that. I didn't even realize that. He's a pretty good athlete, able to move quite quickly. I think able to be a right tackle if you want to move Paris Johnson to the left. Um, I think you just need to protect Kyler Murray. Let him try to stay in the pocket a little longer. I know he likes to run around, but the longer you can hold him in the pocket, the more accurate he is sometimes. And I think Kelvin Banks can do that. He's such a good tackle. I mean, the tape's excellent. Yeah, I mean, it's been good since one of the best freshman tackles that I've seen in recent years. And I think someone that you could go with here with the Cardinals to address that offensive line, which is a need. And then number 17 to the Bengals. Kind of need defense. You're trading your edge in Trey Hendrickson. Sorry, I just blanked for a little bit. Um, I don't know why, to be honest. You just need something on the defense, to be honest. And I think one of the guys with the highest potential is Walter Nolan. On the ground a lot, just because of how high he plays sometimes. But again, has loads of potential. Such a good rusher. Um, at the defensive tackle position. Good at that at A&M as well. Not as good at Ole Miss, or not as good at A&M as he was at Ole Miss at getting to the quarterback. Sorry, I was mixing up my own words there. Um, but I mean, yeah, loads of potential, and I think if you're the Bengals, you can kind of experiment on defense right now just due to how bad it is, and try to get players that can be top tier talents one day. And I think Walter Nolan could be. Just he's a freak, pretty much. There's no other way to put it. A freak in the sense of he has a weird ability to get to the quarterback from the interior, which a lot of D linemen don't have. So yeah, if you're the Bengals, I think you just bank on the potential here, just because that defense is just atrocious, especially with losing Trey Hendrickson. And then 18 to the Seahawks. This is weird because they don't have Geno Smith anymore, and they desperately need a wide receiver too. Um, if the Jackson Dart hype becomes real, you could see him go here or in the next round to the Seahawks. You could see Tedrick Millen go here due to them losing wide receivers left, right, and center. Um, but I think you can also address the defensive side of the ball or guard. And I think, huh, I'm kind of conflicted here. You could go interior D line, but I think you want exterior more. You could go linebacker, but I think Jahad Campbell could be an edge. And now that I think about it, that's perfect for them. Sorry, I'm just not in my correct headspace. Jahad Campbell was an edge recruit coming out of high school, but obviously you had Will Anderson there, who's a Texan now. You have I'm blanking right now, but you had definitely other edge prospects at Alabama that were basically gonna go to the draft regardless. Um, I think Wandarius Robinson's more of a D tackle than an edge, but he's not big enough to play D tackle. Um, but yeah, Jahad Campbell's such a dynamic athlete. I mean, ran in the 4.4s, I believe, can play off ball linebacker. Just due to the athleticism, not necessarily the readability of the game, which is what needs to be addressed if he is an off ball linebacker. But can get to the quarterback, and I think the Seahawks would try him out at edge, I believe. But I think they're gonna undergo a rebuild, to be honest, with the amount they're losing. Um, but yeah, Jahad Campbell's a really good fit there. And moving on to the Buccaneers at 19, which I don't think they need a linebacker because they just re-signed Levante David today. Um, but what do you need realistically if you're the Buccaneers? I mean, you have a pretty solid lineup. Um, but a lot of the top tier edges are gone. I think Mike Green and James Pierce are more down here. But are you that desperate to get an edge? You could be, because I mean, I think Mike Green would be a perfect fit with the Yaya Diaby type of guy. Um, both similar in the way that they're smaller but powerful. And I think you could complement Yaya Diaby with someone that's similar to him on the other side, and that's Mike Green. And then 22, the Broncos. I think you're getting a pass catcher here to help out Bo Nix, and I think that pass catcher is going to be Matthew Golden, actually. I could see Tyler Millen going here if he falls, but I I think this is his rightful spot. I don't know if he's as good as third in the draft as PFF says. I mean, Matthew Golden, dynamic athlete, secure hands, just really good prospect. And the more you watch the tape, the more you fall in love with him. And I think he could end up being wide receiver one in this class, just due to that workout. And then 21 to the Steelers. You're also in la la lane here too, because I mean, if you want a wide receiver, Tedder Oaks right there. If you want a corner, Jahad Barron's right there, and I think that's what you do is you take Jahad Barron. I think more of a nickel, uh, like a Brian Branch kind of mold. I think that's the player comp that everyone's kind of going with, and I agree. Just due to his natural instincts for the game, but he's a lot faster than Brian Branch. I mean, ran in the 4.3s, which was not anticipated. I thought he would be high 4.4s, low 4.5s, but ran a lot faster than he plays, I think is the way to put it. And I think you could try him out at boundary just due to that speed that he showcased, but I think his instincts and his natural ability to find the football would lay him as a nickel, and I think he would excel in that role. And I think the Steelers would love him there to pair alongside Minka, who's kind of depreciating uh, in athleticism just due to his age. 22 to the Chargers. I think your favorite pick here would have been Marion Hampton, but he goes at 12. Do you take a Caleb Johnson? Do you not? It's up to them. Uh, I don't think they would. I think the only team that really would is the Vikings, just due to the scheme fit. He's very similar to Aaron Jones. But here, if you're the Chargers, I think you just go Tedder McMillan. You get the big target, help out Justin Herbert. I mean, that team had nothing else besides Ladd McConkey last year, and I mean nothing. I mean, that playoff game against the Texans, you could see it. I mean, Herbert had no other option, and the tight end didn't really help in the pass game. The running backs didn't help in the pass game. And I think you can address that later in the draft. You can find a pass catching running back. I think Devin Neal's really good out the backfield, and I think that'd be a really good fit if you're trying to find that third down back that comes out the backfield and pass catches for you. But Tedder McMillan's just such a good prospect. I think could go higher than this and could go anywhere in the first round, to be honest. It's really hard to determine where he's going to go. But been at the top of the board since the start. I don't know if he'll stay there, but very good prospect, very big. I think like 6'4", near 200. Yeah. Sorry, it says 6'5". I don't think he's 6'5". I think he's 6'4". Mm, we'll figure out right now. I love this thing. Obviously didn't participate in the combine, but yeah, 6'4", 219. So he bulked up. A little bit smaller though. Just by an inch. It's nothing too major. But really good prospect, really secure hands, very good route runner on the interior. Can play on the exterior just due to his size. Could be a big slot guy, but I mean, I think Ladd McConkey's that slot guy, and I think you put Tetaroa on the outside, which is what suits him the best. I think, yeah, really good pick if you're the Chargers, and I think you'd love this if he falls to you. And I think another dude that you'd love to fall, which would be in pick 23 to the or not the Chargers, to the Packers, would be Will Johnson. I think could be a top 5 guy in this class, to be honest, if he runs well during his private workouts, which we won't know, but the NFL will know, obviously. The only question is his long-term speed, and he has an injury history. Injured this year for Michigan, missed the last 7 or 6 games, somewhere around there. Not able to work out at the combine or the pro day due to that injury. I think it's just lingering. But I mean, such a good prospect, such good tape, and such natural ability for the ball. Um, I swear he had a touchdown last year. He might have not. I guess not. But yeah, I mean, just racks up interceptions, can tackle. Just one of the most complete cornerbacks in this class, and I think someone that should go a lot higher. A little biased because I'm a Michigan fan, but again, one of my favorite guys in this class. Um, but moving on to the Vikings here. Uh, I think this is a question of what interior position do you want to address? Do you want to address the defensive interior? Do you want to address the offensive interior? Um, and here with the Vikings, I think you could go either, to be honest, and it's dependent on if you go D line, do you want an interior rusher or do you want an interior player to stop the run? And I think you kind of want a mix of both. And Derek Harmon's really a pass rusher. Kenneth Grant's really that run stopper. Darius Alexander's a similar boat to Kenneth Grant, just a little faster. But Kenneth Grant's also just an absolute freak. I mean, could run. I didn't run at the combine, but could probably run in the 4.9s, high 4.8s. Sorry. Um, but yeah, I think you could go with the Derek Harmon here. You could go with the Kenneth Grant, but you could go with the interior offensive lineman here, and I think Gray Zabel could be one of those guys. But I think you address trying to stop the run more than stop the pass rush from the opposing team, and I think you go with Kenneth Grant here if you're the Vikings. So back-to-back Michigan guys go, and I think that hurt the Texans because I think the Texans would like to go somewhere on the interior. You could go wide receiver here with Luther Burden being here. Um, I think could work, but if you view Luther Burden as a slot and Christian Kirk's on your roster, I don't see you really going two slots. Um, but then again, you don't know what the new offensive coordinator and Nick Caley could run a heavy slot system that the Patriots used to use, or you could run a big guy at slot, which the Rams have with, I mean, Puka Nakua or Cooper Cup. Cooper Cup's pretty big. Um, but here with the Texans, I'm actually going to go who I talked about last pick in Gray Zabel, unless you want to move Titus Howard to guard and you think Josh Simmons is just such a dynamic athlete that you go him. Gray Zabel is just very versatile though, able to play across the whole line. I think had snaps at every position in the on the offensive line during his time at North Dakota State, predominantly at tackle or left guard. Um, but I think a plug and play guy right away and just such a good fit for Houston. Um, so yeah, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. You just go with what you need to address, and what you need to address is that offensive line pretty badly. Again, if you go Will Freeze um, during free agency and a Drew Dahlman as well, I think this could switch to a Luther Burden or a Derek Harmon or even a Malachi Starks if you want to address the safety spot with Jimmy Ward just being kind of meh. But yeah, right now at this current day, you go with what you need to address, and what you need to address is the offensive line. And then number 26 to the Rams. This is kind of a funky spot. Um, you don't really need to address this. You could address linebacker if you need to. Um, but I think you go with Josh Simmons here. I think you could get a tackle to protect Matthew Stafford. Uh, just the more the merrier, to be honest. Can't really have enough offensive linemen, and he could have been a top 10 pick if he didn't hurt his knee. And then I can't remember if it was last fall or this fall, but I believe it was this fall. I don't think he played this season. But the tape from yes, it was the tape from 2023. That's very good. Had limited tape this year due to hurting his knee, but just really good player. I mean, can't really say enough. Just very complete. And one of the true tackles in this class. Um, and 27 to the Ravens. I mean, I don't. They just have someone fall to them. I guess every year, and they have whatever they want, kind of just come to them. And in this case, it'd just be Luther Burden. I think. Just get another dynamic player to play alongside Zay Flowers and up that receiver core that desperately needs help. I think Luther Burden could be wide receiver one in this class alongside Matthew Golden. I like 2023 a ton. 2024 was kind of meh, but I think that was due to quarterback play more than anything, so I'm not really gonna judge on that. But I mean, yeah, just such a good player is the only way to put it. Just so complete. Such a viable option from the slot. Can play exterior too if you'd like. Um, I mean, yeah, there's not really much explaining to do. I think you just turn the card in once you see him there. Um, whoa. 28 to the Lions. I don't know what you really do here. Do you want to adjust the edge, or do you try to trade for a guy like a Trey Hendrickson or something like that? I don't really know, but where we are right now, they haven't. So I'm gonna go with one of the most dynamic athletes in the draft, and that's James Pierce. Just so quick off the ball, something like Shamar Stewart, just not as big or weigh as much. But in terms of athleticism, he's similar to him. Really showed out at the combine, had a good workout. I think one of the better players in this class, but I don't really see him going all that high. I don't know why. Just don't have a good feeling. But then again, if one team falls in love with him, he could go high. I mean, it just takes one team to like you to go as high as you need to be. Um, but yeah, I think you'd like this if you're a Lions fan if you don't address edge in the offseason or like during free agency or anything like that. Could go James Pearson, just be happy. But then moving on to the Commanders, I don't really know. Do you want wide receiver even though you just traded for Debo? Um, you'd want an outside guy, and I think Emeka, or unless you play Debo on the outside, I guess that's a, or at the Y. Put or no, I guess Terry would be at the Y, and then Debo at the Z. I don't know, but if you're playing Debo on the outside, you could go on the inside and go Emeka Ibuka and just solidify the receiver core, especially with what you don't know about Debo. You don't know if he's going to be really that good or not. Could address the secondary, and I think that's what I'm gonna do here, looking at the options. I think Maxwell Hairston goes in the first round just due to that 40 time. To be honest, I mean he does have good tape. He's a very good man corner. I think could fit the Dan Quinn system very well. Um, I think could go to the Packers and Will Johnson continue to fall, but I just like Will Johnson too much as a prospect to let him fall that far. Um, but yeah, I think Maxwell Hairston is a first round guy now after that combine workout. Um, and I think the Commanders really need to address the secondary. So that's what they do with Maxwell Hairston. And then number 32, the Bills. I think you want someone to pair with Ed Oliver, and for me, that would be Derek Harmon, just due to his ability to get to the quarterback. I don't know if Ed Oliver's. I mean, he's had a decent amount of sacks before, but I don't know how much he got to the quarterback this year. Yeah, 3.5. But this is the season I was talking about. He's got to the quarterback before. It just didn't really happen all that much last year. Had a pretty down year. But Derek Harmon just has a consistent ability to get to the quarterback, and I think if you want that, you address that in the draft more than free agency because there's not that many free agent D tackles that are really that exciting unless you go with Jonathan Allen. Um, but yeah, I like Derek Harmon as a prospect a lot, and I think the Bills would be happy to have him just to address that pass rush from the interior. And then moving on to the Chiefs, I think you really want to go a line here, but do you want? Oh, excuse me. Do you want Josh Connerly here? Had a very fast 10-second split, and I think you could play him at the right tackle spot instead of Jawan Taylor. Jawan Taylor was just horrible. I don't. There's no other word to put it. I mean, had a false start every single play. Felt like, but just wasn't called. I think the league just felt bad for him to an extent. Um, but yeah, I mean, Josh Connerly's a really good prospect, very well-rounded, athletic enough, and has 33.5-inch arms, which is fine enough for a right tackle, even a left tackle if you're athletic enough. But I don't know if he's athletic enough to play on the left-hand side, but could play on that right, and I believe that's where he'll plug and play right away and be a day one starter, which I think is what the Chiefs desperately need. And 32 to the Eagles. I mean, what do you really need? Do you want to address the interior with losing Milton Williams? But then again, you have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. I mean, your roster is just stacked, and I think you just stack it even more by going with a very good prospect to Malachi Starks here. I mean, Reed Blankenship's good, but I think you could always upgrade on him at the safety spot. And I think Malachi Starks does that for you if you want to play single high or even two high. I think his tape 2 years ago was a lot better than last year, but I think he was experimenting in different roles last year, which kind of hindered his ability. But then again, just such a good prospect. I think could go high or I think him and Nicky Mawari. Sorry, I'm exhausted for some reason. I think Malachi Starks could go where Nicky Mawari goes. Sorry, and that'd be still justified. Um, there's not many safety spots really. I mean, the Packers the Vikings, the Commanders. Maybe there is actually a lot now that I think about it. I probably shouldn't have said that. Um. Anyway, the Colts. Um. I mean, yeah. I think everyone could use a little secondary help to an extent. The Rams. I'm just contradicting myself. The Raven. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I think Malachi Starks is a really good prospect in this draft, and I think he's just falling a little bit due to the Nicky Maori hype. And I think once safety one gets taken, it kind of drops a little bit. Jeez, I would take a nap after this, I guess. But yeah, this is my first round mock. A couple wrinkles in there. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter going all the way down to 4, Tyler Warren going 5, even Shador going 3. Mason Graham going 7 is a little different. I think Jalen Walker could go here. Shamar Stewart could flip with Michael. Colson Loveland, Omarion Hampton, Nicky Warrior, all three kind of out of the ordinary. I think Tet falling that far is a little out of the ordinary. But other than that, I don't know if there's too many. But I mean, you can't really predict the first round. It's just gonna go with what teams want rather than what people are anticipating. But yeah, I hope you did enjoy. And if you have any feedback on my picks, please leave it in the comment section. And I just made a Twitter account, so I'll open it right here if it wants to load. I guess it doesn't want to load. Um, my Twitter account though is this right here. Oh, here it is. Um, YT or YouTube Repulse 2X. Pretty much my YouTube name. But yeah, I'll just be posting NFL stuff on there. And yeah, if you could go follow, I'd appreciate it. And if you drop a like and subscribe, I would appreciate that even more. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and peace.